So much. Here now in a CNBC exclusive, Senator Ted Kaufman, Democrat from Delaware. Mr. Kaufman, thank you, sir, for coming on.
Hey, Larry, thanks for having me on.
All right, great stuff. Now, you've been a big critic of short selling, and I want to get down to the bottom of this because, you know, I have to tell you, to me, short sellers are like truth tellers in a free market for stocks, and I don't know what the bellyache is here.
Okay, Larry, I am not an opponent of short selling. I've done short sales myself. What am I of is a short selling. What I want to do is make sure that short selling is not a way to drive the market down and that we have a free market, and I'm totally with you. I think short selling is just fine. But there's two really major concerns I have. One is the uptick rule, which stood us in good stead for 70 years. And the second is the pre-borrowing conditioning for short sales. And that what's going on now is, with the uptick rule being out, a number of people, the exchanges, the head of the Fed, have called for reinstating the uptick rule, and I think it's a good thing. And anecdotally, there's a lot of information on it. And second is the pre-borrowing requirement, which is they had 5,000 complaints. The SEC's Inspector General found 5,000 complaints against the naked short selling. They examined 123 and found no examples of improper short selling. That's not what I hear from everyone. Clearly, these things have to be looked at. That's what the Securities Exchange Commission is all about.
Senator, let me just ask you on the borrowing, the collateral part, which I think is a good point, and I appreciate it. Failure to borrow or pre-borrow, as you put it, is it against the law?
Yes. Well, failure to borrow is, but how they enforce it and how they check it is one of the real problems we have. And it's clear that a lot of this is going on. There's been, and as I say, there have been newspaper reports, in fact, that this contributed to the Lehman Brothers and the Bear Stearns thing. I mean, Larry, you and I maybe not you, but when I go out and do a short sale, I've got to demonstrate I've got access to the stock. There's plenty of information to say 5,000 cases for the Inspector General. And what concerns me is, I started out just being concerned about the uptick rule and the pre-borrowing. What I am concerned is the way the Securities Exchange has reacted to this. And that is, there doesn't seem to be much of an interest there. Now, changing things and re-looking at, they made a bunch of decisions. 2007, as you know.
Well, I think that's right. And I've been a great critic of the SEC, so I don't want to put myself some sort of defender of that particular agency, from Madoff all the way down to ending the ending the requirements on Wall Street firms, which is a catastrophic disaster. But I just want to ask you, one of the SEC commissioners raised the issue of price discovery. And with respect to the uptick rule, I mean, look, during the long period we had the uptick rule, we had huge bear markets in stocks. I mean, 2000, 73, 74, you know that, 80, 82.
No,
I mean, we're not going to eliminate bear markets just because we restore the uptick rule.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. We're not going to eliminate bear markets. It's just how bad they're going to be. And the example they use...
But can we really judge that, how bad they're going to be? Let's go to that point. That's a vital point. I mean, we don't know. There are factors. Look, we had overbuilding of houses. We had bad mortgage finance. We had bad government regulations or the lack thereof. How do we know that an uptick rule would possibly affect the length, breadth, and duration of a down market?
Because I think the uptick rule stood us in good stead. We had bear markets, but not to this extent. There is plenty of anecdotal evidence. As I said, the head of the Fed and the stock exchange themselves have said we should look into the uptick rule. I'm just saying the uptick rule is important. I think it's part of a whole abusive short selling deal.
But you don't want to stop the short selling. Let me raise a couple of points here, because this is important. I have friends of mine, and it's not because they're friends. If they disagree with me, I disagree with them, and both of them know this. But look, a guy like Jim Chanos, the famous short seller, he's long and short, but on the short side, he discovered the AIG disaster and tried to signal the market. He pulled the plug on Fannie Mae and Mac as a short seller. And the fact is, blaming short sellers for the problems with a lot of banks and Fannie and Freddie and AIG and Lord knows what, they're not the problem. Here's the underlying fundamentals.
Yeah, by the way, I totally agree with you. I am not, I said it before and I'll say it again, I am not opposed to short selling. I do short selling myself. I haven't done it for a few years because I've been busy doing this job. but I totally believe in short selling. I'm just talking about abusive short selling. As I said, the Inspector General came back with 11. This is the Securities Exchange Commission. Inspector General came back with a number of recommendations. The Securities Exchange Commission just kind of didn't even deal with it. I've dealt with Inspector General's report. You got to take him seriously. The uptick rule is something I really could help. And here's the final thing, Larry. People are concerned. I think the chair got it absolutely perfectly right when she said People are concerned about the credibility of our markets. You know, the key thing right now, whether it's in the housing market or it's in the jobs market and everything else, is credibility and people having faith they're getting a fair deal.
I know, but I just worry. Look, I'm a free market guy. I just worry that political, regulatory intervention is not going to solve the problem in the short run or the long run. Senator, while I got you, let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
Get your first take on this.
Yeah.
The Treasury now wants to tarp the insurance companies, and I personally think this is nuts. We should be de-tarping and reducing taxpayer debt and liabilities. Can you give me a quick thought on this? Because when you all come back from recess, you're going to have to deal with it.
Larry, let me tell you something. This may be the most unusual policy I've ever met. I never comment on something I don't know anything about. Right now, I have no idea. I have not looked into TARP and the insurance companies, so I'm not going to tell you where I stand on it.
All right. Senator Ted Kaufman, we appreciate it, sir. Good luck on your new post. All the best. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Coming up, we're going to go.